All right, let's talk about the tech world we're all swimming in. I mean, it feels like there's this constant storm of innovation, right? But is all that noise, all that hype, actually pointing us toward the stuff that really matters?
You hear it constantly, right? Wearables are set to boom. And the chatter is, well, it's deafening. Just between January and October of 2024, there were over 2.5 million online mentions about them. Think about that. That is a ton of attention for, what, a slightly better heart rate sensor?
And it's not just watches anymore. Now we've got smart rings, and they're all over the headlines. People seem to love them because they're subtle, you know? They just sit there, quietly collecting data, making us feel like we've got a better handle on our health.
Then, on the other side of things, you've got this massive buzz around super cheap electronics. And let's be honest, there's a real thrill in snagging a great deal, and brands are totally leaning into that feeling to get people talking on social media.
So you see this cycle, right? It just takes over our feeds. It's this constant drumbeat of consumer tech news. You've got the announcement, then the excitement, then the media coverage, and it all just feeds itself. It keeps our eyes glued to that next package delivery, while the stuff that could actually change the world, well, that's happening way in the background, very, very quietly.
But have you ever stopped to wonder what's really driving all this noise? I mean, is a slightly better camera or a phone that folds in a new way, is that really the best we can do right now? Is that the peak of human ingenuity?
Well, a lot of it starts with something the Nobel-winning economist Robert Shiller calls narrative contagion. And the idea is pretty simple. A really compelling story about a new piece of tech just catches fire. It spreads like crazy through the media, gets investors all hyped up, and often it has nothing to do with how important the tech actually is.
And this is the key thing. The process just feeds on itself. A new story pops up, the media blasts it everywhere, investors get excited, and then that excitement becomes the next story. So you end up with the speculative bubble, usually built around these tiny little updates instead of any real, genuine breakthrough.
So, that leads to a really important question. While we're all focused on the next smartphone, the next cool wearable, the next convenient app, what are we missing? What are we not seeing? What are the real game changers being built in the shadows?
Okay, so let's do that. Let's look past the headlines for a minute. Let's dive into a completely different world of technology. One that's not about small steps, but about making giant leaps.
So here's the core difference we're talking about. On one hand, you have incrementalism. That's most of the consumer tech we see, small, convenient improvements. But on the other hand, you have genuine, innovative leaps. Incrementalism makes your life a little easier. Innovative leaps, they reshape our entire world.
And this is the world of what's called deep tech. We're not talking about another photo-sharing app or a slick new gadget here. No. This is where science and engineering come together to tackle humanity's biggest, gnarliest problems. Everything from climate change to curing diseases.
And what's fascinating is when you look at where all this deep tech is actually being built, you see these incredible hubs. Take artificial intelligence, for instance. The huge majority of the top companies are right there in North America.
And it's the exact same story for biotechnology. I mean, a staggering 84% of the world's leading deep tech biotech firms are in North America. These are the companies working on tech that could literally cure diseases and completely change how we think about our health.
And check this out. Quantum computing, another field that could change everything. North America and Europe together, they account for 94% of the leadership in that space. And why does this matter? Well, because quantum computing could give us the power to discover new medicines or create brand new materials for things like clean energy. It's huge.
So forget about a slightly faster processor in your phone for a second. We're talking about real technological leaps here. Things like organs on a chip that could make animal testing a thing of the past. Solid-state batteries that could finally make electric cars practical for absolutely everyone. And brain-like neuromorphic chips that could make AI radically more efficient. This is the kind of stuff that actually changes the world.
Okay, so if this amazing world of deep tech exists, what's the big deal? What's the real cost of all of us being so focused on the hype around consumer gadgets? Is there a downside? Let's take lab-grown meat. Here you have a technology that could be a massive win for the planet, seriously cutting emissions from agriculture. But it's struggling. It can't get enough funding, the public thinks it feels gimmicky, and you even have governments trying to ban it, basically to protect the old way of doing things.
And you know, this constant distraction does something else. It buries the really tough, really important conversations we need to be having. While we're all busy debating screen sizes, these massive technological issues are unfolding.
Things with huge consequences, like the privacy risks of facial recognition or the security of our global networks. And they're happening without nearly enough public debate or understanding.
And yeah, there's a real economic cost to all this misdirection. The economist Robert Gordon points out that even with all the tech headlines you see, actual productivity growth has been slowing down for decades. And that suggests our innovation engine isn't really firing on all cylinders. Some people are even calling it a great stagnation when it comes to truly meaningful progress.
So what do we do? How do we break this cycle? How do we get our focus off the small, easy stuff and onto the giant, difficult leaps that we, as a species, actually need?
Well, the first step is just realizing that always playing it safe, just tweaking what we already have, can actually hold us back. It locks us into these old ways of thinking and stops us from even looking for the truly radical, game-changing ideas.
What we really need is to build a whole new culture around innovation. A culture that's focused on solving humanity's biggest challenges, not just hitting the next quarterly profit target. It means we have to fund the brilliant people out there with the truly radical ideas, the nerds with a mission. And it means we have to stick with those ideas through that tough early phase, the valley of death, before they're a sure thing, before they're guaranteed to make a dime.
At the end of the day, our attention is one of the most valuable things we have. We can choose to spend it chasing the hype, getting excited about small, incremental updates, or we can choose to seek, to understand, and to champion the genuine, innovative leaps that will actually shape our future. The choice is ours. So, which ones will we choose to see?